Oh, goodness. All right, well, there we go. Those are sound effects. That you, yeah, we'll we'll have to hire someone for sound effects still. Okay, so welcome to the DEIOS mapping it out portion of the stream, and this video, of course, if you're watching on YouTube, you can catch the battle maps update as a separate video. Go and look for it on the channel. We're talking DEIOS, and we haven't had an update now for quite some time because it's the new year, and so we are certainly looking forward to this year as many great things are on the cards, Till.
Yes.
Now, before we jump into what those great things are, if you have a question, remember to please put the word question in caps in front of your question so that I can see it. And if, as has been happening on tonight's stream, because it is a new style of stream that we're doing, I miss it, please feel free to ask it again, and I will hopefully, I beg your pardon, hopefully see it a second time and ask it to Till. And of course, our wonderful moderators are in the stream to answer all of your great questions, so keep them coming. Keep them coming. Now, Till, nearly 2 months since our last mapping it out, what has been going on?
Oh, so much. Okay, so, yes, we had our last stream, I think in November. End of November was our last mapping it out stream.
Right.
Because we knew that in September people will be on vacation or on holidays. Which means that we now had 2 months to develop stuff, finish stuff, move stuff forward, and I'm really proud to show what has happened today, because there is, I think there's a giant leap in terms of aesthetics and quality that has happened. So the good news first, blueprints. Finally, we have the fix that we've been waiting for from Noasis. So the blueprint is being finished up and tested at the moment. So there's going to be blueprints available really soon. But
We actually have a demo for you this evening, as well.
Yes, we're definitely going to look at the demo of that and other stuff, because the team hasn't been idle while we were waiting on the blueprint fix. No, we have been, and if you can flip the slide, I think we can have a little view on what has been going on. Again, if you've been watching the DungeonFog stream, then you know that those are progress bars that you're looking at. So the light blue means the closer it is to the top, the more it is finished. Blueprints, as we've just spoken about, the UI needs to be updated and tweaked here and there. We need to store the blueprint images somewhere. That is in the making and should be finished by the end of the week. And then it's basically just bug fixing and fine tuning to see if everything works as intended. And then we're done with blueprints. Now, we have been working on other things in the meantime, which are, I think, quite interesting to you. And one of them we're calling Tectonics. So we have, we've been working on on a Tectonic system for landmasses. We've basically thrown away what we did with landmasses beforehand, without throwing away landmasses per se, but the way we generate them, to finally bring us where we wanted landmasses to be when it comes to coastlines, when it comes to the foundation work for biomes and stuff like that. So Tectonics is already a little bit about 50% finished. We need to update the UI, we need to do some code cleanup, bug fixing, probably performance testing and improvements. Then we can hand out the Tectonics patch as well. Waves, what does that mean? We have also been reworking our coast, what did we call it previously? Shallow water effects around the coasts. We didn't like them. We knew that we wanted to rework them, and we found the perfect spot to do so over the course of this time frame that we're speaking. So they're also finished almost completely. We need code cleanup, bug fixing, and performance has already been checked, by the way. But there is one visual effect that we want to implement that I couldn't bring for today. And once we're happy with that, we will release the waves tool. It's not a tool. It's the waves aesthetic to you. It's an effect. And lastly, Andre has been working on the layers panel. It's not in a state that I can showcase today. I have brought a little screenshot of what it is looking from our UI mockups. So we're most likely going to tackle that in our next mapping it out, because by then it is most likely already finished and released. Generally speaking, the estimate that I have received from the dev team on all 4 of those things to be finished is within the next 14 days. So the next patch is coming within the next 14 days, most likely. Before I forget, there is another thing. I forgot that almost because I forgot to add it to your script, I think. We had a lot of requests of users or backers from our initial Kickstarter campaign who were gold, silver, or bronze backers, and they were saying, well, we understand that you've been delayed in 2022 with COVID and the re-roll of the first alpha. Are you still keeping us waiting for the access any longer? And the answer is no. In the next couple of days, you will receive a Kickstarter update. If you have been backing Project DEIOS at bronze, silver, or gold level, and you're still waiting to join Alpha, we're not going to let you wait until we have finished Alpha 2. We are going to open Alpha access to everyone as a thank you for your patience, and because now we're already getting in a state where more feedback is actually appreciated too from our side.
Well, that's fantastic news to hear. We're going to get so many more folk in. Do you anticipate that having any kind of ramifications on the current sort of strain of the software? I mean, it's locally based, isn't it?
It's locally. It's a desktop application, so it's not going to strain us. It might strain us because we get more feedback, but actually that's not a strain. That is something that we're looking forward to, because having your feedback is the most crucial thing that we need to improve. And as you are going to see today, your feedback has heavy impact because from the feedback that we've received over the ongoing alpha now, the tool that was ranked lowest from your satisfactory points was the landmass tool, and we have addressed that. So we're going to see what happens. So if you flip the switch, we might see some more slides, unless you want to ask some.
I've got some questions for you. Firstly, I think, I think they're relevant to ask now, because I think once we dive into it, because we're going to be diving into these tectonics, folks, it's going to blow your mind. When Till was describing it to me, I'm like, oh, and then we can do this, and then we can do that. And have you read this book? There's an amazing book called Supercontinent, and you can read that. And he's like, okay. So firstly, the question from Vasala Rasur, and the question is, when do you think we're going to get to Alpha 2?
In summer. I have a roadmap prepared for you so that you can see what our development schedule for this year is. We are hoping that somewhere, I would say somewhere between early summer and end of summer this year, we will be in Alpha 2. We will be in city map development.
Super exciting. There we go. Another question from Lensman de Leoncourt says, will Keora be able to join an upcoming stream to give us an update on his progress on the 3,000 assets that are due to be implemented?
Of course. I think it would be great, especially now that the aesthetics of DEIOS have moved forward. It would be great to bring in Keora for one of the upcoming mapping it outs, and we talk about the progress of asset creation. Sure.
Fantastic. Possibly March, somewhere around there. I know there've been a lot of things with those assets. There's been lots of things going on in the back
Yes.
end that we haven't really seen and spoken about. So yes, perfect. Okay, lovely. And then last question, I think, is, well, it kind of leads us into tectonics. I think that's why it's important to ask it now. Will the random landmass feature be part of the tectonic update?
Yes, to some extent, yes, although probably not as you are expecting it, which doesn't mean that what you're expecting is ignored. It's just the first step into that direction, and we will see today what that means. But yeah, we're getting a lot closer to that already.
I see you're practicing your politician's speech. Yes, you're going to get it, but not what you think it is, and not how you think you're going to get it. But you definitely will get something.
I'm sorry.
All right, so let's jump into tectonics, which you're definitely going to get, because I absolutely love these. Shush. Right, tectonics. Look at that beautiful map. How long did it take you to make this map, Till?
20 minutes.
20 minutes. Yes, we're going to talk about why it was so quick to do that, obviously in DEIOS. We're going to be looking at this map a little bit later on. But tectonics. Tectonics, what is this?
Okay, so first of all, we've completely changed the way that we create coastlines. We're not taking away from you that you can hand draw them yourself, but we have enhanced the tool in a way that you can define an area, and within that area, we are using Ilya, who's been the head behind this this whole transition process. He has been reading up on tons and tons of papers about tectonic simulations. And he found a very cool model that we're seeing here in the background. Where's my finger? There. That uses those splines to generate realistic coastlines based on something that is actually called a tectonic system. And if you go into the next slide, you will see that was the previous one, right? You will see that there is an algorithm behind that kind of, I think the best way Ilya described it to me was from a volcanic generation part, where you have a mountain erupting and bleeding out, which actually creates that landmass. So all those cells are actually, we can identify them, which brings us to the tectonic part of that concept, that if you take a landmass and shift it into another landmass, we can identify those collapsing cells, and we can adjust them in a way that they might pile up or succumb to each other, so as if tectonic plates would hit each other. It also means that we can use this as part of a height map to identify higher and lower areas on your landmass, which means we can eventually pre-fill those landmasses with biomes. Yeah.
Next slide.
Next slide. So not all of that is going to happen within 2 weeks, of course. What we can do is within the next 2 weeks, we can fine tune this height map concept that we have and make it in a way that we can pre-color the landmass that you're drawing with different color schemes based on the height of the map that has been generated, in alignment with the color palettes that Keora is creating for that, so that you can then use that pre-colored landmass to decorate it. And once we work on the biome tools, we can then tie them to those specific areas, and we can then plug them in and say, okay, if you pre-generate a landmass, we already know where the forest biome or the mountain biome or the grassland biome should sit. So that's kind of the way that we're approaching this. So this is now a completely different topic.
Okay, so before we go to that topic, we've got some things here on this topic. So I think something that was also very important, Till, is, let's say, for example, we generate it, and this particular continent that we're designing, Yes, it may have originally started as a volcanic eruption, and so it would normally have that canonical kind of shape to it. But it also suffered from glacial action, which carved a giant shape out of that cone, and now we want it to be more of a U shape. Can we go in and manipulate that data?
Yes, you can. There are several different tools and approaches to that we are, again, slowly establishing. But for now, you can control the sea level to kind of. It's weird that you're controlling the sea level, because basically you're raising or sinking that landmass into the ocean. So you're not controlling the sea level, but you're controlling the distance between the landmass and the sea level, which will affect the way that those cells are being created. But Ilya has researched a lot on the different coastline types, like, for example, as you said, glacial coastlines and atolls and other stuffs like that, where you can basically then have presets to define how you want to reshape a specific coast area of the landmass.
That's fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. Subby Gamer says, Tectonics, are you guys going to have a definite number of tectonics or tectonic plates, such as 2 to 36, or will that be decided by the creator based on what I'm seeing?
You need to be careful if you think we're calling it tectonics, because the way that it behaves, that those landmasses behave, are comparable to what you would expect if you have a tectonic system on the landmasses itself. There isn't really a tectonic plate system at the bottom of your kind of world map. It's basically the way that the landmass behaves when it collides with another landmass. Respectively, it's the way that our algorithm produces a landmass when you are randomly drawing this kind of tectonic landmass onto the water. So I wouldn't really. I knew it was a bit troublesome if we really call it tectonics or not. But I think the concept is quite easy to grasp if you think of landmasses as tectonic objects that can collide into each other based on those cell shades that we saw before. So I hope that answers your question.
I think that makes sense. Yes, if you are going to ask a question, please put the word question in caps in front of your question. If any of you are interested in plate tectonics, there's a fascinating book called Supercontinent. I cannot remember the name of the author right now. I feel ashamed for it, but it is an amazing book which talks about how we know all the things that we know about tectonic activities and all the weird and wonderful ways in which tectonic plates actually interact. Tectonics, super cool. Now, another thing is layering.
Yes, exactly. So if we move forward to layering, again, this is on an internal part. It is quite finished or far in progress. But from a UI perspective, there's not much I can show today apart from the layout screens that we have. And I think the important part is, for those of you who have been part of Alpha 1, the one from 2022, 2019, I can't remember, the one that we had to roll back. We made the big mistake that we said, oh, you're going to have a layer system that can break down to each and every asset in the list. Now, not only was that a heavy strain on your system resources, but also it was absolutely useless if you think about using a layering list to select one single asset. You're going to be much more precise if you take your mouse and click on that one single asset on the map. However, we want to introduce and we want to bring something to you that is comparable to layers, but I think is better described as organization groups. So what you can do, to give you a rough, we're going to demonstrate it fairly soon. I think in the next mapping it out, we can have a thorough look at how it works and performs. But to give you a rough introduction of what it means is, you can select stuff on the stage and you can group it together based on tags or based on your selection, or based on similarities that those objects share. And you can create your own custom groups that you can then modify, like you can duplicate that or hide it or highlight it. So you're creating regions out of your selections. So you're grouping stuff together. We use an internal tag system to give you recommendations of how you would like to do that. So on the screen, I'm not sure if you can read it through because of streaming quality, but you can see that we automatically create groupings for all the trees, and then you can decollapse them and say, well, which trees, the conifer trees. We're not giving you every conifer, but we're giving you all the conifers that you can select at once. And if you want to break them down into your own separate group, like you would like to say this is the northern Sherwood Forest and this is the southern Sherwood Forest, then you can do that through your selection and define subdivisions of that yourself, which makes it fairly simple to control what is visible or what is selected on the map and how you want to interact with that. And again, from an internal standpoint, we're quite far in developing that. Unfortunately, there isn't really something I can show you yet, but we're going to tackle that in the next Mapping It Out.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Are there any more slides?
I don't know. Yes, I think the next one is the roadmap.
That's right. So
yes,
Till, we do have a demonstration of the new DEIOS, but I think let's do the roadmap first and then we finish off with the demonstration.
Yes, I would
Perfect.
love to.
So let's look at our roadmap.
So in terms of goals, I've broken it down into quarters. So the first quarter is going to bring the blueprints, tectonics, waves, and layers. We've already talked about those things. They are within the next 14 days. They're done and delivered. Next thing we're going to tackle is finally export and copy and paste, which means that you can create that you can have a clipboard across maps where you can copy and paste stuff to the clipboard and onto a different map. And I'm sorry, I'm saying Andy, I meant Nikita is pushing hard on the M1 optimization. He really wants to do that. And hopefully by the end of this quarter, we then have authentication and the asset server in place, which makes it much easier for Keora to kind of distribute assets directly into the DEIOS application. Which again, I think if we can achieve that by the end of quarter one, that would be a great mapping it out to bring in Keora and talk about all the assets that he is currently hoarding to then distribute them into the software. Quarter two is our focus will be on biomes and rivers and roads, as well as UI cleanup and optimizations. And ideally, by the end of quarter two, we have finished world map development. Finished means to a state where you can create maps quite thoroughly and good looking. It does mean, however, that we know that there are other revision cycles coming later where we improve everything and where we refine the stuff based on your feedback. But in terms of having a palette of usable tools that create a great outcome, by the end of quarter two, we hopefully are there. Which means in quarter 3 and 4, we can then finally work on city maps and the battle map integration, as well as other stuff that has been on our list for quite some time, like the install wizard, code signation, world generation, there we have it, and general performance optimizations.
That's really cool. That's really, really, really cool. And hopefully we'll achieve that. But we'll be tracking that journey every month.
So yes, we will keep you updated. You will know where we are, and we will talk about progress and setbacks if we face any.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
AK Writer asks, will the two of you, that's Till and Guy, compete over making a DEIOS map like we did making the DungeonFog maps with Myri?
No, I don't think so, because I've already humiliated Guy once. I don't want to do that a second time.
Thanks for watching. The stream's over. Oh,
well,
dear.
maybe we will see. I mean, by the end of this summer, DEIOS is in a state where I could actually picture us competing over a world map.
You never know.
You're going to beat the shit out of me there, because I'm not a good world map creator. I've learned this through testing and developing, that I'm good at map maps, but I'm not so good at world maps.
World maps. Well, we'll see. There's lots going on in world maps. Anyway, I think it's more about us collaborating on making worlds than competing on making worlds.
That. Why not?
Who knows?
Sure.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Till, should we jump into the demo of the latest build of DungeonFog, which I've got my hands on?
Of course. Let's do it.
All right. You doing sound effects? I'm prepping for this next layout.
Okay.
Oh my god. Okay. And then I have to go here. Oh, wait, what have I done? No, wait, you gotta go, wait, there we go. All right, sorry, I knew there was something that I forgot to switch. I need to set up another one of those. So much stuff going on. All right, so this, you are now seeing on my direct screen. That is showing you the DEIOS layout. And here we can see a blueprint.
Mm-hmm. You have already added a blueprint.
That's right. So zooming in here, you can see this is a blueprint of a map that I made nearly 20, no, not 20 years ago, I lie. This is based off of a map that I made 20 years ago, redrew in, I think, Photoshop by mouse and hand. And then you took it into DEIOS.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this map that I drew here took me probably about an hour, I'd say, to draw. And I wouldn't say it's exactly pretty. It's functional, but it's not pretty. And then you took it in, and I'm going to change the opacity of this blueprint to reveal the actual map that you made.
Yes.
And I think that's stunning. And here, folks, if you haven't grasped it yet, I'm going to zoom in to get some detail here on this mountain range on my hand-drawn map. I'm getting some pixels, and that's it. But if I go to the DungeonFog version, I'm getting beautiful trees and grassland, and I could add in some more information here, and I could even zoom in even closer. So I think that's showing you really the power of DungeonFog straight away. Now we're seeing a couple of effects in play here. Till, where do we start?
Yes, I think let's start with the simple things first. Let's have a look at what the blueprint, because we've been promising a blueprint tool. We've been waiting on the blueprint tool to be ready. So let's tackle the blueprint tool first. In your upper menu bar, you have a thing called View that will have different options for your viewports. Right now, it contains the blueprint window. And when you click on that, you will get the blueprint window, and that allows you to upload blueprints into your blueprint library. It basically, you click on Add Blueprint, you upload one, and it gets added to that. Right now, this is where we can't hand it out yet. They aren't stored anywhere. We are going to store them, and we're going to populate them through your Documents folder. So there's going to be a place that we can actually read those blueprints from. So there you have a place where you can organize blueprints, and by clicking on them, you can actually activate or deactivate them and bring more than just one blueprint in, which I think is quite powerful, because if you have different blueprints from different sources, you can add them and mesh them together. And then you have some little controls there where you can hide all those blueprints, show them all, lock them so you're not touching them anymore. And when they are unlocked, you can always select them through your regular selection tool on the stage, which gives you then options for manipulating those blueprints, like moving it around, or changing the opacity, and also
You can scale them with Control Shift.
You can use Control Shift to scale them, or you can use I think Shift mouse wheel to rotate
Shift
them.
rotates, yeah.
So I think that's quite powerful when it comes to combining all those things on a map and using them as blueprints to retrace them and recreate them. Keep in mind, however, there are two things that I need to mention. First of all, we are storing the position of the blueprints for you on the map. If you start to share that map, we're not handing over the blueprint, so thus we're also not handing over the position. A map that is being shared with others will not contain the blueprints, because we need to do that to prevent some piracy kind of workarounds where you import maps from others, then share the map, and you basically have done nothing to the map but took the image from another artist. However, there is going to be eventually a tool where you can change the water texture to a full-sized image, so you can draw upon. Those maps will not be shareable though. So that's the way how we're approaching this. So this is blueprints. I think it's quite straightforward. Everyone will understand what to do. So let's look at, if you zoom in, let's tackle the next thing, because you will notice that we now have a completely different way of rendering the shallow water areas, which means that we have those waves, those coastal waves that we're drawing around the map. This is almost finished. We're going to give you, right now there are no control options when you select that, but you will get options to modify the color and the intensity and stuff like that with those waves. As well as the one thing that we haven't made for this build today is we are looking at ways to make this look more hand-drawn by adding some filters and effects to that, to those waves, so that they are looking like pencil drawn and intersected, and not as cleanly following the coastline all around. But generally speaking, we're quite happy. If you have keen eyes, you might notice that there is a lightly turquoise glow to the outer areas of the coastline. This is also something we want to improve in the next couple of days. We have a shallow water effect that needs to be adjusted and fine-tuned, so that the water color gets lighter the closer it gets to the coastline.
Super cool.
Yes.
All right.
I think visually that is already a big improvement to what we had before. But now let's look at the Tectonic system as we have it in place. I think you've already seen it while Guy was creating that island. You have two brush modes. The first one is the one that we already know. It's just the first button here. There you go. And that is just a regular freehand drawing. However, if you switch to the second one, now we're taking the shape that you're creating and we're rendering a landmass into that. Again, this needs some fine-tuning because the outcome might be completely different from what you've been expecting. So that is something that we fine-tune. But when you look at the way that those land masses look, I think this is a major improvement to what we had before when it came to organically looking coastlines. And this hasn't even been with the manipulation of the sea level. So Guy, if you would take that and put the sea level to 1, it's right now, it's going to be a slider for you guys, because right now it's a value between 0 and 1. And you create something, you will see that there's more water. Did you confirm the one with the tab?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Always take it to 0.
No, I think it's zero makes more landmass. But you can also switch to the lowest button, which is the filled landmass or empty. If you switch to that one and you now draw another one, you will see that it should actually create more like an atoll. Yes, so it's creating a lot more water bodies. It's a lot of fine tuning from our side to go in and adjust those values or preset those values for you so that the outcome is interesting when it comes to landmass creation. But we can watch Guy as he plays around with the values. There you go.
That's at 0.2.
Exactly.
0.2.
Yeah.
Very different. Very, very different. And I think very exciting as well.
Yes.
And of course you can always go in and
also, yes. So the interesting part is you can add to it, and you can, which makes it even more interesting, is you can subtract from it. So you can use your add and subtract modes to actually create interesting areas that, again, I feel like look very, very much more organic than they did before.
Absolutely.
I'm always saying organic, which is, I'm pretty sure, not the perfect word for landmass. What would be the perfect word? If they're not organic, they're geologically correct.
Yeah, geologically correct. So here, for example, I think this is a great way. If we go back to Blob Island, favorite of many map makers, and I've got subtract on set at 1 kilometer at the moment, the maximum you can, and I subtract from that, suddenly we get these very interesting erosion-like shapes happening, as if this Blob Island has been attacked by something. So lots of possibilities out of that. And if you look at it, those all effectively are just the same shape, just tweaked and adjusted slightly using those values. So very, very exciting. While we're on the subject, Peter Kelly asks, will we be able to indicate the number of lines for shallow water?
Yes. Yes, we already have that it's an internal value at the moment, but we can hand that to you. So you can define the number of lines, how much they bleed out or not.
Fantastic. Till, was there something else that you wanted to show us? I think there is more, isn't there?
It's getting late here. Let me think. Did we have what else did we have? We were talking about
if you're wondering why are we so in disarray, we wrote the script and then we changed the slide presentations and didn't remember to update the script, so we kind of went, oh well, there was a script, that's it, we're done. I think one of the important things to talk about is, if you were not here at the beginning of the show, next month's show will be taking place on Monday rather than on Tuesday, as we will be doing a live show from Vienna. I'll be going over and joining the team in Vienna, and we'll be looking at how DungeonFog is used in context within Till's role-playing dungeon. I'm very excited to see that, and we'll see how it all works, comes together,
so
as well as doing
Monday the 21st.
The 21st of March.
February.
February.
Yeah.
February. I'm already in March. Oh dear. Let's see if we've got any more questions.
Yeah, and just quickly because I got my list here now. We have updated the way that when you would brush assets onto those land masses, you select single or all land masses. So if you go to a prop here and you probably pick some trees, that would be, go to single land mass. Okay, and pick some trees or whatever you would like to.
You want a selection?
Yes.
I'm holding down the shift key, by the
way. That's perfect. So you're now building an array of cacti. If you go to your settings and you change the amount of cacti to, I don't know,
let's 15, say 10, 15.
I don't know. It's whatever you would like.
15, and the scatter.
Yes, you have to raise the scatter a little bit so that they're offset from each other.
2.
Yeah. And that's it. So
say 5. Now, it is envisaged that these will be sliders, or do you think these will
No,
remain
this
as
is
numbers?
going to be. This is going to remain fields, but you should be able to use the mouse wheel on the field to scroll up and down the value.
Ah, lovely.
So,
there we
so
go.
when you brush them feverishly over this, you will see that they will never leave the island, and they're actually not bleeding into the shallow water anymore. What we had
Fantastic.
before. So I think that is a good improvement. The other thing is very, very hard to catch. You're going to see it better when you have the new build in your hands. We've changed the way that this inner white glow is working, so that it blends better with the textures. And yeah, and I think that's it. We had some other improvements and bug fixes, and now we're cleaning everything up. And we're finishing the tasks that we want to finish. So within the next, I think it's most likely not going to be, well, it's definitely not going to be end of January because we're already out of January. So it's one of the first 2 weeks of February when the patch hits, the auto updater, and then you will get access to all of that, what we have been showing you today, plus hopefully a first implementation of the latest. And we're going to review all of that then in the next mapping it out. And by that time, we should be already working on export, so we might have a sneak peek at the export tool as well.
Ah, fingers crossed. That would be a great development, I'm sure. In which case, folks... Oh, wait a minute. There are some last-minute questions. We love last-minute questions. Subby Gamer says, will there be a radius indicator for the area of effect, I'm assuming, for the prop placement? So at the moment, it says 5 kilometers spacing or scatter. We kind of have to move the mouse over the map. Would we see a brush shape almost?
That explains to where it could scatter within that radius. That makes sense. I think that makes sense. We should add that. I agree.
I like that idea. I think that's really cool. Then a repeated question from Lensman, which apparently I missed. Can you change the scale of the map after tracing it from a blueprint?
Yes.
Well, yes, you can.
That's going to be interesting. I haven't tested it, but you should be able to. By the way, we've changed the selection, the way that we draw selections, because those outlines, those glowing outlines, were terrible.
Red is so much better.
Yes, there is going to. I talked to Nikita today about that. He proposed that we're going to add a little selection pattern over it, so that if you're zoomed in, you know that you have currently selected the landmass.
So we know we can move it around. Some of those are not paired by the looks of things.
You're destroying my map.
Well, we've got the undo working now.
Trying undo in a test build. Okay. Yes. Well, the question was, can you modify it in terms of, can you select one of those landmass, whatever, the landmass, and scale it up and down? Like, because I remember there was another thing that we fixed. So you can scale, you can rotate, which is not looking great at the moment, because if you rotate it, it will rotate the props as well.
Also, it looks like it's scaling the props too.
Yes, of course it does. It's scaling the whole object. But the interesting part is if you go to one of your creation landmasses over there.
The many mutants.
The many mutants. Zoom in on one of them.
I choose you, Pikachu. Yeah.
Right. And now move it closer to another one. So 2 things. First of all, when you move it over, there's a first attempt of, if you release, you will see what happens. Well, you probably have to deselect it. You have a first understanding of how merging those landmasses would work. It's going to be implemented much more thoroughly in the next couple of weeks. However, what I wanted to show you is if you put them very close to each other, you will see that they have the same outline strength. So previously, when you scale the map, when you scale the landmass, you accidentally also scaled the outline. We fixed that now. So if you take that and make it bigger or smaller, whatever, you will see that the outlines are at the same strength. So that was also an improvement that we tackled, where we said, okay,
I like how the water emerges.
yes, it's really cool. I think having those wave effects intersecting each other is really nice.
And another question, is the export function you mentioned just an image export or a way to share DEIOS files?
We start with the image export at the moment, because you can't in the current DEIOS alpha, which is a terrible shame, you can't export the map properly. When you click on export at the moment, you're just exporting the whole canvas as one image, opposed to really generating a nice rendered export of your viewport. So we're going to tackle that one first. Eventually, there will be a way that you can export your maps, for example, for sharing them through our DungeonFog community hub.
Another question from Peter Kelly, will land masses be able to abut each other, east versus west part of the continent? Will they be able to sit next to each other? It says here, will land masses be able to abutting each other, east versus west part of the continent? I suspect, I don't know how to interpret that. Perhaps Peter Kelly, if you're still watching, can you give us some clarity on that question?
Yes, please. If you're talking about shifting it out to the east,
so that it'll come back to the other side of the map.
Come back to the west. That was in our initial build, but we haven't implemented that yet, because we're not sure if that is actually helpful or if that shouldn't be something like a presetting that you can adjust. Because right now it might be more helpful to just duplicate that. Again, duplication is not part yet, but copy pasting is coming, and make that manually. Not sure if that was your question.
It makes sense to my mind.
Yeah.
Finally, Lord God says, would it be possible to indicate the radius in units on the brush in the editor window? The circle shows where it will affect, but not the world scale, like hover 5 kilometer on the brush. So the brush...
We did actually, if you zoom in once more, we have unified a lot of scaling stuff. So if you select the color brush, for example, you can, I think it should be now in kilometers. I can't read it on...
Yes, it's 25 kilometers at the moment.
So we've tried to unify everything into kilometers. I think what you're saying is, should we relay that information on the tip, on the brush tip itself, so that you see that you're currently affecting an area of 25 kilometers, for example, while you're drawing that? I think it would be an easy thing to do, to relay that information onto the radius here, so that you always know at what sizes are you currently working on. I like the idea. I'm going to talk with the devs about how we can do that. Probably something that you can toggle. By the way, toggling, can you go to the preferences window? I think we've added some stuff in, I can't remember. That's DEIOS, the DEIOS menu icon, and then preferences. Let's see, did we add anything here? That's the black and white, the outline version only. What's that? That's just the language pick, right? Okay, so probably it's not part of that build. I do remember that, yes, I do remember that you should be able to adjust the grid color, but I think that's already released in the previous build. It might, yes, there you go.
Yes, grid color.
Yeah, okay, perfect.
Houston, we have a problem.
Yes, you've killed it. Okay, that's the glory of test builds, and I think that's perfect. perfect scenario.
It's perfect timing. Now you can see what I'm listening to. That was a fantastic composer, by the way. If you're looking for some music, Jessica Curry. Folks, Jessica Curry. All right, so... right, Till, we've got to the end of the show, and we've actually got to the end of our time. So there you are. Folks, let us know. What do you think about this new show? Hit that like button if you haven't done so already. If you want to say, if you want to let us know what you think, well, do so. You can join us on Discord. I know the moderators have been sharing links throughout the evening in chat. Join the team on Discord. Continue the conversation there. Till, anything from your side before we wrap up?
I really enjoy the new format, by the way. I just wanted to give that feedback myself. I think it gives us a lot more stage for talking about stuff, and also see those relations between what's happening in the company, what's happening on the map editor, what's happening on DEIOS. I enjoyed the time that we spent talking about those things. I can't wait to get your feedback. I can't wait to hear what you think about the new format. And I can't wait to hear what you think about the new patch that is coming. As always, if you haven't joined our Discord yet, join Discord. We're chatting about those things in Discord quite a lot.
Share your maps. Share your maps. Who knows? You might be on the next community map share. So there you are. Folks, we'll see you again next month on the Monday, the 23rd. I think we said that was the date.
21st.
And until then, 21st, on the 21st, Monday the 21st. We'll see you Monday the 21st. And until then, from both of us, the very happiest of map making. Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.